Here's something most first time Disney guests don't realize: Walt Disney World isn't just a theme park, it's basically its own city. We're talking 40 square miles, bigger than San Francisco, with 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 30 plus resorts, golf courses, and even its own road system. And here's the kicker: how you get around this giant Disney city can make or break your trip. Some transportation options are magical, some are miserable, and some can actually save you hours of your vacation if you know how to use them. So today, we're ranking every single Disney World transportation option: the buses, the monorail, the Skyliner, the boats, minivans, even the walking paths, from worst to best. And trust me, there are some hot takes in this list you won't see coming. Number 6. Disney buses. Okay, let's be honest. Buses had to land at the bottom. They're the most common form of transportation at Disney World. Every resort has bus service, and the buses connect you to all 4 parks, both water parks and Disney Springs. If you're staying at one of the all-star resorts, or Pop Century, or even most moderate resorts like Coronado Springs, buses are basically your lifeline. And to their credit, they do the job. They're free, they're air-conditioned, they run all day, usually every 20 minutes or so, but magical? Not even close. The problem is the waiting. If you've ever stood at a bus stop in the Florida sun, sweating through your sunscreen while buses for every other park roll by 3 times, you know the frustration. I've had mornings where I was ready to rope drop Magic Kingdom, only to watch 3 Animal Kingdom buses, 2 Epcot buses, and 1 Blizzard Beach bus show up before mine finally came crawling around the corner. By the time we actually got to Magic Kingdom, half the advantage of rope drop was gone. And then there's the ride itself. Sometimes you luck out and get a seat with a nice blast of AC. But other times, you're standing shoulder to shoulder with 50 other tired, sweaty guests, clutching a handrail while your kid tries not to topple over every time the bus hits a turn. Not exactly the pixie dusted experience you imagined when you booked your Disney vacation. There are, however, ways to play the bus system to your advantage. First, mornings. Buses usually start running about 45 minutes before park opening, and those first couple of runs are your golden ticket. If you're at the stop before sunrise, you're in a nearly empty park by the time the rope actually drops. That means shorter lines and a head start on rides. Second, strategy at closing. This is where most guests get burned. Fireworks end, everyone heads for the buses. And suddenly, the Pop Century line is wrapped halfway around the station. But here's the secret. Sometimes it's faster to take a bus to a different resort and walk, Skyliner, or boat from there. I've cut 30 minutes off my trip just by catching a Coronado Springs bus and then ride-sharing the last stretch instead of standing in a mob. Still, no matter how you slice it, buses aren't all that magical. They're the oatmeal of Disney transportation. Reliable, filling, but nobody's posting Instagram stories about them. And that's why they're sitting at number 6. Number 5, minivans. Coming in at number 5, we got the flashy red SUVs covered in Minnie Mouse polka dots. Minivans, like Minnie Mouse. These are Disney's premium rideshare option, run through the Lyft app, actually. On the surface, they're perfect. Comfortable SUVs, friendly Disney cast member drivers, and here's the big selling point. Minivans can go places regular Ubers and Lyfts can't. For example, a standard rideshare has to drop you off at the Transportation and Ticket Center if you're headed to Magic Kingdom. But a minivan? Straight to the front gates. Huge time saver. They're also a lifesaver in emergencies. Say you've got a dining reservation at Cinderella's Royal Table and the buses are running late. Call a minivan and you're whisked away in minutes. Or maybe it's the end of a long Epcot day, your toddler has fallen asleep in the stroller, and the bus line looks like a Black Friday sale. Minivan to the rescue. But here's the downside, and it's a big one. The price. We're talking $30, $40, sometimes $50 for a ride. That's just to get from, say, Animal Kingdom to your resort. For families on a budget, using minivans daily is not realistic. Now, I will say this. Minivans have saved me a few times. I once left Epcot during a summer storm and the Skyliner was closed. The boats were closed, the buses were overflowing. We called a minivan, and 10 minutes later we were back at our resort lobby, sipping water while thousands of other guests were still scrambling. That's when the price tag feels worth it. But unless you've got an unlimited budget, minivans are a splurge. They're not your everyday plan. They're your backup, your emergency parachute, or your treat-yourself option when you just can't face another bus line. Fun? Absolutely. Magical? Sure, in small doses. Practical? Not really. And that's why minivans land at number 5. Number 4, boats and watercraft. Now, let's talk about something a little more magical. The boats. Disney runs an entire fleet of watercraft, and if you've never been, you might not realize how many different boats there actually are. The big one is the ferry boat that runs between the Transportation and Ticket Center and Magic Kingdom. If you're not staying at a monorail resort, this ferry is often your grand entrance to the park, and let me tell you, it's a moment. You step on board, find your spot on the top deck, and slowly start gliding across Seven Seas Lagoon. Off in the distance, Cinderella Castle rises into view, sunlight sparkling off the water, kids gasping as they see the park for the first time. That's Goosebumps Disney magic right there. But the ferries are just the start. There are also smaller resort launches that connect Magic Kingdom to the Polynesian, Grand Floridian, Wilderness Lodge, and Fort Wilderness. These are cozy little boats, usually open air, and they give you a totally different vibe. Instead of the rush of buses and crowds, you're out on the water with the breeze in your face and the sound of the motor humming quietly. It feels almost like an escape from the chaos, like you've found a pocket of calm in the middle of Disney's non-stop energy. And then over on the Epcot side, you've got the friendship boats that circle Crescent Lake and World Showcase Lagoon. They connect Epcot, Hollywood Studios, the Boardwalk Inn, Beach Club, Yacht Club, Swan and Dolphin, and the surrounding areas. These are slower boats, no sugarcoating it. The ride from Epcot to Hollywood Studios takes like 20 to 25 minutes, while the walking path between the two parks is closer to 15. But when your feet are screaming after a 12-hour day, that extra 10 minutes sitting down feels like heaven. Of course, there are drawbacks. Boats are the most weather-dependent form of transportation at Disney. Lightning within a certain radius? Shut down immediately. And in Florida, afternoon thunderstorms are almost guaranteed, especially in the summer. That means if you were counting on a boat to get you to dinner, you may suddenly be rerouted to buses or walking. And then there's the speed. If you're in a hurry, boats can feel painfully slow. They're meant to be leisurely, not fast. I've been on friendship boats where I could literally see people walking past us on the path, arriving at the park before we even reach the halfway point. Still, there's something uniquely magical about Disney boats that earns them a solid mid-list placement. They're not just transportation, they're atmosphere. They're the kind of thing you'll remember in snapshots, the castle shimmering across the lagoon, the boardwalk glowing at night, the peace of Bay Lake under a starry sky. That would impress my wife. They're not perfect, but they are memorable, and that's why they land at number 4. Number 3, the Disney monorail. Now for the icon, the Disney monorail, the OG of Walt Disney World transportation. Since 1971, it's been shuttling guests back and forth, and for many people, it's as much a part of Disney as Space Mountain or It's a Small World. The monorail feels futuristic even after all these years. You step onto the sleek, silver train, hear the classic announcement, "Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejando de las puertas." And instantly, you're in Disney mode. But here's where most guests get tripped up. There isn't just one monorail, there are 3 separate loops. The Express line runs directly between the Transportation and Ticket Center, TTC, and Magic Kingdom. If you're driving in, parking at TTC, and heading straight to the park, this is your fast track. The resort line also runs from TTC to Magic Kingdom, but it stops at every resort along the way, the Polynesian, Grand Floridian, and Contemporary. It's slower, but it's also more fun because you get a mini tour of some of the most iconic hotels. Then there's the Epcot line. It's completely separate, running between Epcot and the TTC. This one's a bit longer, but it gives you fantastic views as you swoop into the park. Knowing which loop you're boarding is crucial. I can tell you how many first-timers I've seen accidentally hop on the resort line thinking it's the Express, only to watch their 5-minute ride turn into 20. Now, let's be honest. The monorail isn't perfect. Breakdowns happen. Sometimes you're stuck waiting because a door won't close or another train needs to clear the track. And during peak hours, it can feel like a sardine can, packed with sweaty strangers, everyone pressed up against each other, praying the AC holds out. But despite those quirks, the monorail is pure Disney magic. Even if you're not staying at a monorail resort, you can still ride it for free. And you should. Take the resort line, hop off at the Polynesian for a Dole Whip, swing by the Contemporary to check out Chef Mickey's, Mickey waffles, then loop back. It's a built-in tour and a piece of Disney history rolled into one, and then there's the view. There's nothing like gliding into Magic Kingdom with Cinderella Castle framed perfectly in the window. It's iconic. It's the kind of thing that gives you goosebumps even if you've seen it 100 times. So, yes, the monorail has its flaws, but it also has nostalgia, atmosphere, and magic in spades. That's why it lands solidly in the top 3. Number 2, the Disney Skyliner. Alright, number 2 on this list is Disney's newest, boldest, and maybe most divisive transportation system, the Skyliner. These colorful gondolas connect Epcot and Hollywood Studios to 4 resorts: Pop Century, Art of Animation, Caribbean Beach, and Riviera. If you're staying at one of these hotels, the Skyliner is basically your golden ticket. Forget buses, forget parking. You walk to the station, hop into a cabin, and you're whisked away into the sky. And let's be real, the Skyliner is fun. It feels like an attraction. The kids treat it like a ride, adults whip out their phones to film the views, and it makes even a mundane park hop feel exciting. Soaring over Caribbean Beach with Spaceship Earth in the distance? That's a postcard shot. Gliding into Epcot's International Gateway right next to World Showcase? That's a grand entrance if I've ever seen one. Another big plus? The line moves fast. Unlike buses or boats that load in batches, the Skyliner is continuously loading. The cabins just keep moving. Even when the line looks intimidating, it eats through the crowd surprisingly quick. You'll often wait less for the Skyliner at peak times than you would for a bus in the middle of the day. But let's talk drawbacks, because there are some big ones. First up, no air conditioning. The cabins rely on vents and cross breezes to stay cool. When you're moving, it's actually not bad. The breeze feels refreshing. But the second the line stops, you're basically trapped in a Florida greenhouse. I've been there, suspended in midair, sun blazing down, praying the gondola starts moving again before I melt into the seat. Second, weather. Like boats, the Skyliner shuts down the moment lightning gets too close. And if you've ever been to Florida in the summer, you know that's almost every afternoon. I've seen guests caught off guard counting on the Skyliner to get them to a dining reservation, only to find the whole system grounded until the storm passed. Backup plans are essential. Still, the Skyliner is revolutionary for Disney. It's fast, it's scenic, it's fun, and it adds a touch of magic to something as simple as getting from your hotel to Epcot. Even if you're not staying at a Skyliner resort, I recommend making a trip just to ride it. Here's a pro move. Start at Epcot's International Gateway. Take the Skyliner to Riviera Resort and grab a pastry and a coffee at Le Petit Café. It turns your transportation into a little adventure all on its own. So, while it's not perfect, the Skyliner earns the number 2 spot because it combines convenience, efficiency, and pure Disney magic in a way that no other system really does. Honorable mention, walking paths. Before we crown our number 1 pick, I have to give a shout out to the simplest, most underrated transportation option at Disney World: walking. Yep, just your own 2 feet. Disney has been quietly expanding its walking paths, and in some cases, walking is the fastest, most reliable option out there. Take the Contemporary Resort, for example. From the lobby, you can walk to Magic Kingdom in about 10 minutes. And when fireworks end and everyone's standing in an hour-long bus or monorail line, you're halfway back to your room already. That's priceless. There's also the relatively new path from the Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom. It's a beautiful stroll, especially at night when the lights twinkling on the water. It's romantic, it's peaceful, and it beats waiting in line with a cranky crowd. And over at the Epcot side, you've got the walking paths from the Boardwalk, Beach Club, Yacht Club, and Swan and Dolphin. From any of these resorts, you can be inside Epcot in under 10 minutes, or at Hollywood Studios in about 15. That's faster than the Friendship boats and often less hassle than the Skyliner. Of course, walking isn't always realistic. Florida heat? Oh, can make a 10-minute walk feel like a marathon. Rainstorms can drench you halfway through, and if you've got kids who are already wiped out from a long park day, suggesting a 15-minute stroll is basically asking for mutiny. But when conditions are right, walking is unbeatable. No waits, no crowds, no delays. Just straight to where you're going. And that's why it earns an honorable mention. It might not have the flash of the monorail or the magic of a boat ride, but sometimes the simplest solution is the best. Number 1, nighttime boats and ferries. And finally, at number 1, nighttime boats and ferries. Now, you might be thinking, didn't we already talk about boats back at number 4? Yeah, we did, but here's the thing. Boats at night are a completely different experience. They're not just transportation at this point. They're a piece of Disney magic all on their own. Picture this. You've just watched Happily Ever After at Magic Kingdom. The crowd pours out of the park. Everyone's exhausted. Kids half asleep in strollers. You board the ferry across Seven Seas Lagoon. The boat pulls away, and suddenly, there it is. Cinderella Castle glowing in the distance. Fireworks smoke still hanging in the sky. Reflections dancing on the water. The whole boat goes quiet, just soaking in the view. That's not transportation at that point. That's a memory. Or over on Crescent Lake after Epcot's fireworks. You step onto a Friendship boat, glide past the boardwalk lit up with neon and carnival lights, and the sound of laughter carries across the water. It feels like you've stepped into a storybook. And even the smaller resort launches can feel magical at night. Drifting back to Wilderness Lodge across Bay Lake, the water dark and calm, the lodge glowing warmly in the distance. It's peaceful, almost cinematic. That's why nighttime boats and ferries take the top spot. Not because they're the fastest, because they're not. Not because they're the most practical, because thunderstorms will shut them down in an instant. But because they capture the feeling of Disney better than any other option. They slow you down, give you a chance to breathe, and wrap up your day in a way that feels unforgettable. Disney World is all about memories, those little snapshots that stay with you long after your trip. And for me, nothing delivers that better than a nighttime ride across the water. And that's the full ranking of Disney transportation, from the buses at the bottom to those magical nighttime boat rides at the top. What's your favorite way to get around Disney World? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more insider tips, check out the video on your screen and grab our free planning sheets at castlecompass.com. Your adventure is just beginning.